day after day, week after week, for months and years on end. So after hearing that sound so many times, some inmates, like our subject Floyd Hamilton, who lived right here on Broadway, decided that they didn't want to hear that sound anymore. And so somewhere along the way, Floyd Hamilton had his second defining moment. This time here at Alcatraz, he decided that his future should not hold with the sound of the slammer. And so on April 13th, 1943, Floyd Hamilton left his cell here on Broadway. He walked right down the aisle, went out through the recreation yard and down to the Industries building, and he reported to work. And as he left the building that day, he thought that this would be the last time that he would ever hear this sound. Hamilton figured that would be the last day he'd ever hear the sound of the slammer, because he was planning to escape from Alcatraz. On that particular day, he and 3 other prisoners were able to take the guard by surprise, basically beat him up, tied him up, and they slipped out the window and got down to the water's edge. When they got to the water's edge, they jumped in the water, they were spotted by the correctional officers, ordered to stop. They continued, and the guards opened fire. First inmate, James Borman, shot and killed. His body sinks underneath the waves of the bay. Next guy, Harold Press, is picked up by the prison launch. Third inmate involved named Fred Hunter. He's picked up out of the bay soon thereafter. And by the end of the day, the officers had opened fire on several prisoners, captured 2 of them, and they were reasonably sure that Floyd Hamilton was also shot and killed and disappeared underneath the waves of the bay. So Warden Johnson even released a statement to the press saying that they couldn't find Floyd Hamilton, that he was surely dead. He even said to the press that Floyd Hamilton is dead. We saw him go under. And he did go under. But he kept going back up for air. He eventually made his way back into one of the little caves on the north end of the island there. He hid behind some rubber tires that had drifted in there, and he remained hidden there. Even though the guards searched him with the spotlight, fired into there, they fired tear gas into that cave, but still, Floyd Hamilton remained hidden. And he would remain hidden for the next 3 days. 3 days and 3 nights out there in the San Francisco Bay, in that cave. High tide, the water came up almost to his chest, and the low tide went all the way out, and he was left sitting on the rocks. And he said later that the crabs came up out of the bay and started biting him on the toes. So after that 3rd day, though, he was tired, he was cold, he was uncomfortable. He decided to climb back up the cliff, back through the window he had escaped out of, and fell asleep next to a radiator. I'd like to say that's the first ever successful escape back in Alcatraz. Imagine being that guard now, coming back from duty the next morning. He walks through and sees Floyd Hamilton back from the dead, next to that radiator. So he was recaptured. He's brought back up here to the cells, put into the Alcatraz hospital, where he spends 12 days recuperating from his injuries and exposure. And then finally, after this entire 15-day ordeal, Floyd Hamilton is brought back into the cell house here. And once again, here's the sound. After all he'd been through, how do you suppose Floyd Hamilton felt in that sound of the sound? Probably not the greatest feeling in the world, but it brought about his 3rd and final defining moment his time here at Alcatraz, because for the 2nd time, he decided that he didn't want to spend the rest of his days hearing that sound. But to avoid that fate, this time he chose a different path. He decided that if he was ever going to get out of Alcatraz and get out of prison, he would have to do it by changing his behavior, by changing his attitude, by working hard in prison industries so that he could earn time off his sentence and earn money for release. And so after more than a decade here at Alcatraz, he was transferred back to Leavenworth, got paroled from there, and stayed out of trouble. He actually worked at a car dealership, and he started an organization for released convicts called Convict, that provided resources to recently released prisoners. And so Floyd Hamilton actually even came back here to Alcatraz as a visitor to this national park. He passed away back in that sound of the slammer. Hearing that sound during all his years here at Alcatraz brought 3 different defining moments in his life. So as we wrap these doors one more time tonight, take a moment to think about how hearing this sound each day might define your time and how it would change you. We've all spent just a few hours here at Alcatraz. I hope that you enjoyed your time here tonight. And I want to thank you for coming out and supporting your national parks tonight. And to head back down the hill now and make our own escape off Alcatraz. I hope that in some small way, coming out tonight and hearing this sound of this slammer was a defining moment of your time here at Alcatraz. So thanks for coming out and being part of it, and enjoy the rest of the evening.